The story about Spartacus isn't just about gladiators fighting in sand-covered arenas. It's about the most dangerous thing any empire can face, hope spreading like wildfire among the oppressed. What started as one man's quest for revenge transformed into a rebellion that would shake Rome to its very foundation. In the next 12 minutes, I'll make you understand why Roman mothers would whisper his name to frighten their children, and why his legacy still echoes through history today. Chapter 1. Our story begins in 72 BC with a Thracian warrior whose real name history forgot. He wasn't born to be a slave. He was a free man fighting alongside Roman forces against the Getae tribes. Everything changed when Roman commander Claudius Glaber decided personal glory mattered more than the mission. Glaber abandoned the campaign to chase bigger victories in Asia Minor, leaving the Thracians feeling completely betrayed. Our future Spartacus had seen enough. He led a mutiny against Glaber, then rushed home to protect his village from the very enemies they'd been hired to fight. He arrived too late. His village lay in ruins, his world destroyed. The next day, Glaber's forces captured him and his wife Sura. The Romans had a twisted sense of justice. They condemned him to die as entertainment in the gladiator arena, while Sura disappeared into the slave trade, probably never to be seen again. Now, here's where the legend begins to take shape. Shipped to Capua, the heart of gladiator training, this nameless prisoner was supposed to die for the crowd's amusement. Instead, he slaughtered all 4 gladiators sent to execute him. The crowd went absolutely wild. Senator Albinius saw something special in this savage display. Rather than death, he commuted the sentence to slavery. Quintus Lentulus Batiatus, owner of a gladiator school, suggested they call him Spartacus after the fierce Thracian king. The name stuck, and a legend was born in blood and sand. Chapter 2. Life in the Ludus wasn't only about learning to fight, but also about survival in a world designed to break you. Spartacus found himself under the harsh training of Mouse, called Doctore, a former champion turned instructor. Every day brought new brutality, new humiliation. The established gladiators made his life hell. Crixus, an undefeated Gaul with a massive ego, saw Spartacus as fresh meat. Barca, a Carthaginian veteran, joined in the harassment. Only Varro, a Roman who'd sold himself into slavery to pay debts, showed any friendship. Batiatus dangled hope like a carrot. He promised to find Sura and reunite them if Spartacus would cooperate, fight well, and bring glory to the house. Desperate and with nothing left to lose, Spartacus agreed. What followed was a meteoric rise through the ranks. Fight after fight, Spartacus proved he wasn't just lucky, he was exceptional. The turning point came when he faced Theocoles, the shadow of death, a giant gladiator who seemed unbeatable. Against all odds, Spartacus killed him. Suddenly, he wasn't just another gladiator, he was champion of Capua, the bringer of rain. The crowds loved him. Batiatus was making serious money. Everything seemed perfect until the day Sura arrived. She came back dying, supposedly attacked by bandits. As she breathed her last breath in his arms, Spartacus felt something die inside him too. What he didn't know was that Batiatus had ordered her murder to keep his champion focused and loyal. Sometimes the greatest betrayals come from those we trust most. Chapter 3. For a while, Spartacus embraced his role as champion. He pushed aside dreams of freedom, forgot his Thracian heritage, and became content with his brutal life. Why fight a system that rewarded him so well? The crowds cheered, the wine flowed, and the pain felt manageable. Everything shattered during what should have been a routine exhibition match. Spartacus was scheduled to fight Varro, his only real friend, to celebrate a young magistrate's coming of age. It was supposed to be for show, first blood, maybe a few crowd-pleasing moves. Ilithyia, Glaber's wife, had never forgotten the humiliation her husband suffered from Spartacus's mutiny. She saw her chance for revenge and seduced young Numerius, the magistrate's son, convincing him that real men demanded death in the arena. When Spartacus inevitably won the match, the boy gave the dreaded thumbs down. Death! Batiatus, desperate to curry favor with the boy's powerful father, forced Spartacus to kill the only person who'd shown him kindness in that hellish place. As Varro died in his arms, something fundamental broke inside Spartacus. The fever dreams that followed brought terrible clarity. He realized Batiatus had orchestrated Sura's death. When he forced the truth from Batiatus's man Aulus before killing him, the last chains on his heart snapped. Spartacus looked around at the Ludus, at his fellow gladiators suffering in silence, at the Romans treating human beings like property, and made a decision that would change history. He would kill them all. Chapter 4. The revolt began during another exhibition, but this one was different. Instead of fighting each other, Spartacus and Crixus turned their weapons on their masters. With help from Mira, a house slave who opened crucial gates, and the reluctant support of Doctore, they transformed from entertainers into revolutionaries in a single bloody night. What do you think drives someone to risk everything for freedom? Please leave your thoughts in the comments and hit the subscribe button if you're a fan of the mighty Spartacus. The massacre was swift and brutal. Crixus wounded Lucretia, Batiatus's wife, killing killing their unborn child. Spartacus personally executed Batiatus in front of his dying wife. When dawn broke, dozens of Romans lay dead, and roughly 70 gladiators and slaves had tasted freedom for the first time in years. Standing over the carnage, Spartacus made a promise that would haunt Rome for the next 3 years, that he'd make Rome tremble. Chapter 5. What started with 70 escaped slaves quickly became something much larger and more dangerous. Word spread through the countryside like fire through dry grass. There was a place where slaves could be free, where the chains were broken, where Romans died instead of ruling. Spartacus proved to be more than just a skilled fighter. He was a natural leader with an instinct for guerrilla warfare. His growing army struck Roman settlements, freed more slaves, and captured weapons and supplies. Every victory brought more followers, and every new follower made them stronger. The Romans initially dismissed them as a minor annoyance. I mean, how dangerous could a bunch of escaped slaves really be? They'd send a small force, crush the rebellion, and crucify the survivors as a warning. Except Spartacus kept winning. When Praetor Claudius Glaber, the same man who'd betrayed him years earlier, arrived with Roman troops, Spartacus saw poetic justice. Their first major battle became a rout. Glaber's forces were decimated, and suddenly Rome faced an uncomfortable truth. These weren't just runaway slaves hiding in the woods. They were an army. The rebellion swelled to thousands, then tens of thousands. Slaves from across southern Italy flocked to Spartacus's banner. They weren't just fighting for freedom anymore. They were fighting for dignity, for revenge, for the right to exist as human beings rather than property. Chapter 6. Success brought new challenges. Leading a few dozen gladiators was one thing. Commanding an army of former slaves was entirely different. Spartacus found himself balancing competing interests, managing personalities, and making decisions that affected thousands of lives. Crixus emerged as his primary lieutenant, but their relationship was complicated. Both were proud warriors with strong opinions about strategy and leadership. When they disagreed about whether to march on Rome immediately or build strength first, the tension nearly split their forces. The arrival of Gannicus, former champion of Capua, added another dynamic. Gannicus was skilled beyond measure with his dual swords, yet cynical about their chances of ultimate victory. His presence reminded everyone what they'd lost and what they might never regain. Meanwhile, Rome was taking notice. What had started as a local problem was becoming a national crisis. When Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of Rome's wealthiest men, volunteered to crush the rebellion with his own legions, everyone knew the stakes had escalated dramatically. Crassus was different from previous Roman commanders. He was methodical, ruthless, and understood that defeating Spartacus required more than just superior numbers. He began building walls and trenches to contain the rebellion, treating it like a siege rather than a series of battles. The rebels found themselves trapped on Mount Vesuvius as winter approached. Food was running low, morale was dropping, and the Romans were content to wait for starvation to do their work for them. Chapter 7. Now at this point, I need to share something controversial. I think Spartacus knew he was going to lose long before the final battle. The Romans had infinite resources, professional armies, and the organizational power of an empire. The rebels had courage, desperation, and not much else. What do you think? Was Spartacus fighting a war he knew was unwinnable, or did he genuinely believe victory was possible? Drop your thoughts below. The breaking point came when Crixus and Spartacus finally split their forces. Crixus wanted to march directly on Rome, to strike at the heart of the empire while they still had strength. Spartacus preferred to head north, to escape Italy entirely and find freedom beyond Roman reach. The separation was a disaster. Crixus's army was intercepted and destroyed. Crixus himself died in battle, beheaded by Tiberius, Crassus's son, as a message to Spartacus. When Naevia, Crixus's lover, brought news of his death, something shifted in the remaining rebels. They were no longer fighting to escape. They were fighting to make their deaths mean something. The final battle at the Sila River was less a military engagement than a final act of defiance. Spartacus's remaining forces, perhaps 6,000 strong, faced multiple Roman legions. They fought with the fury of people who had nothing left to lose. Spartacus himself cut through Roman ranks like a force of nature, seeking out Crassus for a personal duel. When they finally met, two master warriors faced each other in single combat while armies clashed around them. Spartacus won that duel. He defeated one of Rome's greatest generals in fair combat. For a moment, it must have felt like victory was possible. Then Roman spears found his back. 3 soldiers struck simultaneously, mortally wounding the greatest gladiator who ever lived. Agron, one of his most loyal followers, carried him from the battlefield as Rome claimed its hollow victory. Chapter 8. Spartacus died as he had lived in his final years, as a free man. His last words, according to legend, acknowledged that while they'd lost the war, they'd won something more important: the right to die free rather than live as slaves. The Romans crucified 6,000 captured rebels along the Appian Way, turning the road into a forest of crosses. It was meant as a warning, but it became something else entirely, solid proof of the price of freedom and the courage of those willing to pay it. Gannicus, the former champion of Capua, died on those crosses, remembering his glory days in the arena. In his final moments, he saw the spirit of his old friend Oenomaus waiting for him. Even in death, the brotherhood of gladiators endured. What I find timeless in Spartacus's story is that while he lost every battle that mattered to military historians, he won the only battle that matters to human history. He proved that the desire for freedom can't be killed, only delayed. So what do you think about Spartacus's choice? Was dying free worth the cost? Or should he have accepted his fate and lived? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments, and hit the subscribe button if you loved my breakdown of the TV series.